right, we are starting. Welcome everyone to tonight's episode of the Grapevine Wellness Show. I'm your host, Jolyn Armstrong, founder of Grapevine Inner Wellness. I'm so glad that you could make it, and I hope that everyone is safe and well out there on this October evening. It's a special day. We're going to talk about a pretty significant day for us, so I'm glad that we're all here together. For those of you who don't know me well yet, who are maybe new here, as a certified trauma recovery coach, certified grief recovery specialist, and a certified somatic embodiment specialist, I combine my unique skill set to provide help for people struggling with anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, and PTSD. So if you or someone you know is suffering with any of these things, or if you're interested in living a more intentional life, a more fulfilling life, and you aren't sure what's holding you back from that, please do reach out. It's worth a conversation. And I'm offering those attending this show live tonight a complimentary session with me to determine if coaching is right for you. So don't hesitate. You can email me at connect@Grapevine Inner Wellness, or call or text 916-415-8619 to schedule your session. And if you're thinking of someone else who's maybe struggling today, you can definitely transfer this gift to them. Let's just get them scheduled, right? So no pressure there. But moving on to tonight's episode, I have a few thoughts for you. Many people come to me with having experienced a traumatic event or a traumatic experience in their past, and they feel like that experience is holding them back in some way, like preventing them from living the life that they had before the event, living the life that they feel like they deserve and truly do need to move on to now. Some feel like the life that they're living right now, full of fear and anxiety, may be what's in store for them forever. And I'm coming to you tonight. I want to tell you there is hope. In this episode, you're going to hear the remarkable story of Heather Sallan. Heather survived the 2017 Las Vegas mass shooting. We're going to hear a little bit about that, but we're really going to focus on the years that followed. You see, those years for Heather were filled with intense trauma symptoms that made it difficult to function. You're going to hear all about that. And despite trying countless methods to find relief, Heather struggled to regain the control of her life that she deserved and that her life needed, right? But Heather never gave up. That's what I find so amazing and inspiring, among other things. But eventually, Heather discovered a transformative approach that helped her break free from the chains of her past. Today, she's really dedicated to sharing her story and the insights that she gained along the way, hoping to inspire and guide others on their healing journeys. It's just so impressive. This is a unique opportunity to learn from someone who has truly walked through the darkness and found the light on the other side. Heather, welcome to the show. I'm so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and hearing you talk about who you are and what you do. I just want you to know how important what you do is, because what you do is a piece of the journey that I've been on, that if I hadn't done one thing that led to the next, to the next, to the next, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I can't wait to share all of that. You have such an inspiring story, and thank you for that. I think it's best if we talked a little bit about, the thing that happened and the years following, but I really want to learn more about Heather pre-2017, right? Before that incident in Las Vegas. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. So, before 2017, first of all, I just want to sort of preface that I had some pretty traumatic events happen in my life prior to 2017. Yeah. And those things become relevant after 2017. But who I was before, I had a startup company called Boot Rocks that I came up with this idea, this fabulous boot cowboy boot accessory idea, and I brought it to market. And, I had investment, and I had people who worked for me, and I spent 5 years growing this company, and it was pretty amazing. Prior to that, I sold real estate for about 21 years. I've been married, and I've been with my husband for, 31 years. I have 2 kids. I have to say that the way I moved through my life has pretty much been, I've had a lot of success. I had a lot of confidence. I've always been willing to kind of move my way through life as it came at me. And I really have to say, prior to 2017, I could never in my life have imagined that a single event could take the confidence that I moved through my life with and completely took it away. And so, I always say I have my life before, which was vibrant and dynamic and felt very powerful. And then I had this event happen that kind of took me out at the knees.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Part of me wants to say, I'm so glad you had the confidence that you had going into this, at least maybe some resilience and strength, but trauma is so unique in its own strength, right? Just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a what I've now since learned is that, trauma is, they're like Legos. Trauma builds on trauma, builds on trauma, builds on trauma, builds on trauma. And so there's a lot of things that had happened to me in my life that I was able to just sort of deal with, pack it away, and just move on. It was like, that's how I was. I'm like, hey, I got this. I can do this, and I can move on, and I always would have said that all those things made me stronger. All those things made me more powerful. And then when the big T happened 7 years ago today,
Mm.
it was like the Legos crashed to the ground, and all I was left with was everything that I'd never dealt with or handled in my entire life. Like, all of the powerful pieces of me just didn't exist anymore. It's like I had a house that was built on quicksand, and that's what I had to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that you mentioned 7 years ago today. As we
Yep.
were talking about scheduling this interview, this day was an important one. It's significant because it is that anniversary, and anniversaries of an event like that, traumatic events, yeah, they are significant. And I love that this anniversary, you're here so
Yeah.
strong and with that beautiful smile on your face, right? Like, the healing that you've had,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
When I went through when I went through what I went through that night, what happens when you have like these major, I think trauma is trauma. And that's one thing I do want to speak to, is you don't have to have this ridiculously huge event like I had to feel inside of your body the way that I felt. And I, feel like a lot of times people try to minimize their trauma, and they're like, oh my God, well, what I went through is nothing like you. And I just have to say, if you feel the way that I feel inside of my body, doesn't matter what your event was and what my event was. Like, what matters is that that's what we talk about, and how do we heal from that. And, when it was after October 1st, 2017, there's this thing where you are moving away from an event. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been 3 days. I can't believe it's been a week. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks. I can't believe it's been 2 months. And then you get a little bit of like, I can't say normal, because I didn't feel normal for a really long time. But then suddenly you come up on the anniversaries and the dates, and you're like, you start moving back into the event and back into the date. And I can't believe it's going to be a year. I can't believe. And I have to tell you that's really difficult. The dates are super, super hard, because what it was this was the last normal day I had before my life changed forever. And what I like to talk about is that I believed I was never going to be normal again based on what I'd been through. And that is not how I feel today. Like, I am not just normal, but I am thriving. And now I could even look back and say, as horrible as it was, I'm grateful I went through it, because not only have I like worked my way through everything, but it's like I became so much stronger and so much more resilient. And I never could have gotten here if I hadn't have experienced what I did.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. And so it can seem so far off when you're in it, right? Before you've healed. And so, and I want to say one other thing about anniversaries too, because I've seen this happen so many times where people will cognitively, like they'll forget that an anniversary is coming or that it's an anniversary and not understand why their nervous system is so dysregulated and why it's like, why are things so hard right now? And then they look at the calendar and say, oh, wait a minute. Our nervous systems know, even if we kind of block out a date too. So it's anniversaries are significant. And so I appreciate you being here with me on
Thank
this
you.
anniversary. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit, and you're welcome to really share as much or as little as you want about that event 7 years ago. What happened that night?
I mean, I have my PG version that I tell because it's the capacity that I can share the experience with at this point, you know. And what happened was, I thought I heard fireworks, right? I heard three pops. And I walked over and I was staring at the stage. And right when I thought, God, that's really weird that there's no fireworks, is when the machine gun fire started. And it was just this like unbelievable, people just started dropping to the ground and they started running and people were screaming and there was hysteria. And it was so incredibly loud. And it was so the ricocheting of the bullets off of everything. And it was hitting people, it was hitting garbage cans, it was hitting the ground. And there was just this like, everything sort of went into slow motion. And I remember I just started running back because I had my company there and I ran back to my space. And I remember I just started like grabbing people and throwing them into my space and saying, you got to hide, you got to hide. And we were, a bunch of us jumped behind what they thought was a wooden bar. And it just, the noise just kept going and going. And then I was just like, oh my God, they're in here. And it sounded like there were probably 5 people with machine guns. And I thought, if we stay here, we're going to die. And so then I got up and I started telling people, you got to run, you got to run. And they had opened the exit to the right. And so I ended up with this big crowd of people like running out. And it was just like, and all you could hear is just gunfire. And when I ran out of the venue, I remember thinking, if I just get out of here, I'm going to be safe. If I just get out of here. And when I got out there, I looked and there was a police car to the right-hand side and there was a police officer standing behind it. And he had people under the car, in the car and hanging on him screaming. And the look on his face, he was terrified. And he was like, run for your effing lives, run, do not stop running, run for your lives. And I remember I looked at him and I thought, oh my God, like if he looked like that, we're going to die. And I ran across the street, still thinking I got out of the venue, I'm going to be okay. And when I got across the street is when I had a bullet that went right by my ear. It moved my hair. And at that moment, I remember just thinking, oh my God, they're everywhere, because I thought it was a terrorist act and I thought that it was everywhere. Anyway, I ended up like, I just ran and I ran and I ran. And I just, the thing that was haunting for me is that the ricocheting of the bullets, the sound, like when I would hear bullets in movies and people would go, are you okay? And I'm like, oh, it doesn't actually, I mean, it's missing the ricochet. It's not real. Like, I mean, because I shouldn't be able to explain that, but I can.
Yeah.
And then, what was really like hard for me was like when I was running, I left my phone in the venue and I kept on like, I'm like, I've got to call my family because I'm going to die. And I need to tell them I'm going to die. And I need to tell them I love them. And so I knew my son would be awake and I knew my husband wouldn't. And so I just kept asking people, do you have a phone? Do you have a phone? And somebody gave me a phone while we were running and trying to remember, I'm like shaking and I'm trying to remember his phone number. And I remember just thinking like, oh my God, and I finally was able to call my son and he answered. And I said, Max, turn on the TV. How weird is that? There's something super serious It's happening. You've got to turn on the TV. Tell me what's happening. And he said, Mom, are you okay? And right then I knew I couldn't tell my son I was going to die. And I said, I think I'm okay. And he said, what's that noise? And I said, it's machine guns. And then that phone died. And it was somebody else's phone. And then time disappeared. I had no idea if it had been 2 minutes or 2 hours or 2 days, to be really honest. And my somebody else gave me a phone, and I called again and got my husband. And he basically, the machine guns fire had stopped at that point, but I was hysterical. And he's like, get yourself together. I don't know what's going on, but you have to survive this. And I was like, got it. Right. And then I saw the person that we had been split up on I was in the airport runway. I was running in the inside of the airport. We kicked in airport hangar doors and we ran out. And I was running and I saw her hiding on the other side of the fence, 16,000 people. And the fact that I saw her was mind blowing. But my husband heard me scream, oh my God. And then the phone was gone. And they didn't hear from me for 2 more hours. And so now it was coming on the TV. And now they're seeing what's happening. And they didn't hear from me for 2 hours because I didn't know how much time was passing because my brain couldn't conceptualize it. And we were hiding in buildings and under windows for another 2 hours, still thinking that there were people all over Las Vegas. And, it just in general, my story was just surviving. My story was running and the whole time believing I was going to die, seeing shot people around me, bullets, horror, right? There are people who saw people's heads blow up, and I didn't see that. And I'm so grateful for that. But I mean, the carnage where I ended up, people were shot and I would look at them and I'm like, how did you get here? And how are you shot? And I was all alone and I'm grabbing people like, am I shot? Am I shot? Have I been shot? Because I couldn't understand how people who were shot were there.
Yeah.
And it was the most horrific, frightening, and completely unfathomable thing that anybody could ever imagine. And people were like, I can never imagine what you went through. And I'm like, no, you could not. And thank God. I hope you never can imagine it. So it was awful. It was awful. It changed me.
Wow, Heather. Oh my goodness, what a story. And of course it changed you, right? Of course it did. And how can I just ask how your husband and your son are doing after that? That had to be traumatic for them as well in a very different way.
Well, it's really great that you're asking that right now, because what's happened is for many, many years, like it was so much about me, right? It was always going to be about me because what I have learned, I'm involved in a lot of gun violence survivor communities. And I went to a retreat this summer in Mexico, and there were 12 of us there, and 2 of us had been in mass shootings. Everyone else was a family member. They were the husband, they were the parents, they were the brother of somebody who'd been directly involved in gun violence. And I remember I looked and I was like, oh my God, this is my family. But it was always so much, and not because I made it about me. I was so impacted that everybody was running interference around me all the time. And so as a byproduct, what's happened is like now a lot of what went on for my son and my husband is just manifesting. And it's like, now that I'm finally healed, now it's like there's a lot that's going on that they're having to unpack about what I actually went through. And the overflow of trauma and traumatic events with families and friends and the community, and it lasts just as long, right? The traumatic effects last just as long for those people. So I have my husband and my son right now, both are getting like a lot of actual help, because I finally said it's no longer about me. And so what do you need to do to get better? Because they were impacted. They went through it too. They just didn't have the 11 minutes of machine gun fire.
Right. Well, what
at
they
their
went was, yeah, it seems like probably what a family member of something like this goes through is unique in itself. They went through a whole different thing that was more elongated because they saw the effects on you over all this time, right? And so, yeah, their experience was unique. Yours was unique. You all suffered. And
suffered.
yeah. And sometimes, it can feel like to a family of a person who's been through an event like what you've been through, there's an accidental almost a view of selfishness, right? Like everything's got to be about this thing and regulating this nervous system now. And it's obviously and very clearly not selfish, but from a family member's point of view, it's like, oh my gosh, everything is about this. And they don't have that 11 minutes of gunfire, whatever it was, right? So it's unique and also very, very difficult.
And they're not offered the resources I was offered. I
Right.
was offered so much help with the
Mhm.
survivor fund and with the what is it called? There was a victims of crime fund that was set up. I mean, they paid my therapy was paid for 4 years through the victims fund. And and nobody, and my family needed it probably, as looking back, as much as I did, but it was, and it's not just that, my husband goes to his high school reunions and everybody's like, how's Heather? How's Heather? Like there wasn't any, like, people just can't see
No.
when there's something really big that happens, how much it's also, it didn't just happen to me. It happened to my whole family. And my daughter was traveling around, she was living in or traveling in Nepal at the time, thank God. So she wasn't here to be, as she's been impacted, but she wasn't here
Absolutely.
for she was gone for still another year and a half after that. And she just didn't see the carnage
Yeah.
the way my husband and my son had to live with the way they had to live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wow. It and it's nobody's fault, I think, to
Mm,
this point. Our society, we're not really educated about the ripple effects of things like
yeah.
this and
Yeah.
what those who are living with people who have been through something like what you've been through experience. And so, yeah, I'm so glad they're getting help. And
Yeah. Me
thank
too.
you for sharing that. And thank you. We're here to talk about your story, and that's a significant part of your story as well, is the
Right.
effects on them that are lasting here 7 years later. So,
Wow. We
yeah.
were talking earlier that, it's because everybody today is like, how are you doing? And they say that your cells regenerate every 7 years. You're a completely new person, right? You're a completely different being. And I look at all the work I've done, and then I look at the fact that not just the mental and the psychological and all of the physical work that I've done, but then also my body is actually, my cells have shed it at this point,
Yeah.
And so, I am so grateful. I am so grateful that I am where I am today, and I just could never have told you 7 years ago that I would have any vestige of who I used to be. And I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's great. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit. Is there any more you'd like to share about life after when you came home? And we started talking about your family's experience a little bit. What was life like for you after that event?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how things went for me. I couldn't remember anything. I got face blindness for 4.5 years.
Mm.
People would walk up to me and they would be crying because everybody cried when they saw me for the first time. I mean, and I'm talking for a year. If somebody hadn't seen me, they'd look at me and go, and
Wow.
and then they just fall apart. And I would just have to be like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to make them feel better about what I went through. It was the weirdest thing. But um I couldn't remember things. I had to bring a notebook everywhere with me for at least a year. And I had to write down where I was going, and my husband had to help me organize it. I knew I had all these things to do, but they wouldn't fall into slots and categories. And so I had to write down in order with my husband's help where I was going. But if I left the house and I didn't have my notebook, I would just be driving and I wouldn't know what I was doing. And when people would come up to me and I would look at them and I know they knew me, but I couldn't, if they weren't really close to me, there's a lot of people that I just would hope I would figure out how I knew them. And that lasted for a really long time until I actually did ketamine treatment, which I think we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
I was afraid to go to the grocery store. I was afraid I wouldn't go to the movies. And every time there was a new mass shooting, it created a new area I couldn't go. Right. And I got into therapy right away. I did all of these things right away. But like going to Costco, I would go, well, why would I go to Costco? People can walk into Costco and just shoot it up. It's a target. So my therapist was just tell me, like, you have to go to Costco Because as soon as you stop going to Costco, then there's going to be the next thing that you're going to stop doing and the next thing you're going to stop doing. So she would tell me, go on a Tuesday night, 20 minutes before it closes. I don't care when you go, but you have to go. So thank God for her, right? Because she kept me doing things. But, my husband would tell me, hey, can you pick up salad on the way home? And I'm like, yep. And I drive by 7 grocery stores, but I would only go to the one in my neighborhood that I knew where everything was. I knew where all the exits were. Everything I did, I was hyper vigilant. I was prepared for what was going to happen because I knew, the way I can tell you, the way my fight or flight and my nervous system really fired was when I left my house. You probably thought there's a chance something weird can happen, but it's in the back of your head. When I left my house, I knew something was going to happen. I just didn't know where, and I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I was ready. Oh, and ready to run.
Way
you know?
ready, like over ready. Yeah. Yeah.
And so everything about my safety, my security, my executive function, everything was impacted. And I can remember people walking up to me and they were just like, this guy that I was good friends with, he came up to me and he goes, I can't believe how this changed you. And the look on his face to be looking at me, that I was so damaged. And I literally was like, and then I was like, I'm that damaged. I mean, I couldn't pretend. And everybody wanted me to do something because I've always been kind of this warrior, and everybody kept saying, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I just want my clothes to match.
Right.
I'd like my shoes to be the same color as my belt. Maybe the shirt's going to match. I mean, and that was literally like my goal is I just didn't want to go out in pajamas.
Yeah. Yeah. And what an accomplishment, right? When you didn't, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes people come up with those things and say those things because we don't know what else to say to our loved one, people we care about. Like, okay, I think, yeah, being a warrior, that's what we should do, right? And especially when it fit your personality before. So, yeah, what an
Well, and
experience.
then, there was I got involved in I got into activism and I tried to I tried to be in the movement with, helping people with mass shootings and helping people with other things. And then what I found was in my world, I couldn't be that exposed to people who had gone through the exact things that I had gone through because it re-triggered me over and over and over. And then I just realized, for me to heal, I have to not trigger myself constantly. And so I had to really look at what I could do and what I couldn't do. And really what ended up happening for me is I found that I'm really great with telling people, this is where I'm at today. I used to be like you. And I want you to know you're going to be here. You just, it was like there were people ahead of me and then there were people behind me. And I suddenly realized, especially with what's going on in the country with gun violence, that people have to see they can be okay because you just don't. I didn't believe it. And I don't think people believe it. And so if they look at me today and they're like, if you can do it, I can do it. You just got to work. Right. But I am truly about hope and healing. And that's what I live into with what happened to me.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. You talked about, so you were in therapy for an extended period of time, it sounds like, and you tried activism as a way to heal, something to do that didn't work initially. But you were let's talk about other things that you tried, the things that you tried to heal, to feel better.
Okay.
Yeah.
EMDR therapy, which was incredible. And I have to tell people, you go through trauma, you need to do things that help move your brain. You need to do cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR. You need to do something that actually helps move trauma in your brain space. And I got into EMDR literally a week. No, it was 3 weeks after the shooting. And I was in it every week until 4.5 years later. And I was released. I got into meditation programs, and there's a group called Survivors Empowered that there's a woman named Sandy England, and she gave me my life. This woman shows up at mass shootings and she literally goes to survivors and says, I'm going to help you. And it's Sandy England Phillips, by the way.
Mm.
And she says, I'm going to help you. Here's what you need to know. And she created these meditation groups with mass shooting survivors. And she created this structure of like, let's heal through mindfulness. And then I went to a retreat on the East Coast in Barre, Massachusetts with 50 other mass shooting survivors from Parkland shooting and from the synagogue shooting. And all of us got together. And I will tell you, this was pivotal for me. It was the first time that I was not even 2 years out from my shooting. And with all of these other people had all been, they were coming up on their year anniversary. And I was able to look at them and say, hey, this is a really hard time. Here's what you're going to go through. But I want you to know the next day you're going to be okay. And it was the first time that I suddenly thought, oh my God, I have to make sure that people know they're going to be okay. Like suddenly I was the veteran in this, which is so gross that it hadn't even been 2 years. But now suddenly I'm the person that if there's any group in the world that I can look at and say, I know where you're at and they believe me, it's people who've been through what I've been through, right? And so this group of us started doing meditation groups outside of that. And we were in a case study with UCSD. And so then I did meditation and then I went to yoga teacher training and I have never done yoga in my life. And so it was ridiculous. Like I was there for like 26 days and they were like, why are you here? Because I didn't know the names of anything. And I'm like, I really philosophically like what you're doing here. So
That's great.
I made up the names of postures and I was just, I mean, and I loved it so much because the philosophy of yoga was healing and it was mindful and it was this practice that helped me. I started a support group for survivors. I am in other kinds of support groups. Oh my God, what haven't I done? And then ultimately all of these things that I did, everything helped me. Every single thing helped me. But I never got there. I always knew there was more, but I just was always managing my PTSD. I'd be doing better and then something would happen and everything would activate. And then I'd go backwards and then I'd have to do all of the things that I knew to do. I got to exercise and I got to meditate and I've got to go to meetings and I've got to, and I would do all these things to get myself back together. And then something would happen and I get triggered and that was my life and it was exhausting. And so some of my best friend that I grew up with had talked to me about ketamine treatment. And it's really important for me to know I've been sober since I was 20 years old. So I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do anything. And so when she started talking to me about ketamine, I was just like, I'm sober.
Yeah.
I could never do that, right?
Right.
But my suffering became great enough. And the stuff that I was doing, I always use my hand as an example. It's like, exercise and therapy and meditation and yoga and support groups, right? And when I did ketamine, finally decided to do ketamine treatment, it just fused all of it together. And suddenly, for the first time, all the things that I had done, all the things I did that helped me, suddenly it was like, and the day after I did it the first time, and I did 5 treatments in 2.5 weeks, and I did it within a protocol with a doctor in a clinic with therapy. It's like I was given my life back in one session. My PTSD was gone because of all the other work I'd done, I believe. And so it gave me my life back. It got rid of my PTSD. It has been, I speak about it, and just for the sake of saying it, I am still 100% sober.
Yes.
Like I think that a lot of sober people have a lot of trauma and we just go through life like this, right? But you cannot 12-step your way out of trauma. I couldn't, because if I could have, I would have. And so I did this treatment that I will be forever grateful for that. And I speak about it. Yeah. I'm a huge proponent.
It's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm so glad you found that. And I love that description of how that fused everything that you had been doing together, because you named all of these things that help manage symptoms of trauma, right? And no, but I love that healing. In fact, that's how you and I met, was through your ketamine experience. And I just think that's such an amazing thing for you to now come and share that, right? So let's talk about, you talked about how that all kind of fused together. We've heard what your life was like before that, while you're like going through all of these treatments. What's life like for you now? How has that changed?
Oh my God. Okay, so I did it, and it was the first time, like I'll just tell you about the first couple weeks. I
Mhm.
would be driving in my car, and it was the first time I was going the same speed as everybody around me. Before I couldn't even, I could notice the mountains because suddenly I wasn't waiting for somebody to hit me, right? It was like I wasn't waiting for the boulder to drop out of the mountain on the freeway and smash through my windshield. I saw everything like a movie of terror. And for the first time, it was like I was just moving the same speed as everybody else because my fight or flight had calmed down. Right. And it was like I looked at my husband the next morning after I did my first treatment, and we were having coffee, and I said, "Is this how you feel?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And I'm like in your body. Is this how you feel every day with no anxiety? And he said, "Yeah." And I started crying because I don't know. I mean, I got, jumped and beaten physically unrecognizable when I was 20 years old by a total stranger. And I thought the guy was going to kill me. And it was a really horrific event, which led to my quitting drinking, right? Because I couldn't protect myself. And I didn't know when I quit drinking that I'd been in fight or flight my whole life. Right. So I thought it was super high energy. I thought it was ADHD. I thought it was all these things. This is who I am. And then I did ketamine treatment, and I was just like, huh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was in fight or flight since I was 20 years old, but I didn't know any different. And because it was just sort of who I was, it was fine. But all of the layered traumas made it. And what happened to me with Vegas, I literally felt like I had electric currents running through my body every day of my life.
Mm.
I eat half the amount of food because I'm not burning through energy the same speed anymore. I mean, it's pretty profound. How I feel like I am in the world. I feel completely present. I feel gratitude every day because doing this treatment, the one thing that I do know how I would have behaved if I hadn't done this treatment. So I was, I'm a big skier, and they have concerts up at Palisades, and I was I was at a concert, and I'm standing in the back, and I'm watching it, and then they did fireworks, and I'm watching the fireworks, and I was like, oh my God. Like I could never, ever have gone where if I even thought there might be fireworks somewhere, I couldn't go because it would make me physically sick, the thought of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I can go anywhere I want because I want to or I don't want to. But I don't make decisions because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. And I don't play out all these scenarios of what's going to happen.
Right.
And the one thing I want to say is that what had happened to me before I did ketamine was I say they're like silkworm strings of attachment. Like, how fine a silkworm string
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I had all of these strings attached to everything and everybody around me that were attached to my safety and my security, and I didn't know it. And it was layered. It was politics. You were either with me or you were against me, and I'd never been that person before.
Mm.
And the very first time I did ketamine, it's like somebody took a broom and went and separated you from me for the first time. And then now when I go places, it's like your opinions are not my problem. Before they were my problem.
Yeah.
And so I became my own unit in the world again, right? And I have peace in my soul, and I have joy. And as a side note, after what I had gone through, I had decided that happiness was a construct of society, and it was total bullshit, which is so cynical and so horrible,
Because
right?
you hadn't experienced it, because you didn't
Well,
have the capacity. Yeah.
because happiness was stolen from me that
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that I was so naive that I actually thought it was real before that.
Mm.
And when I did ketamine treatment, I found incredible happiness inside of me again. And once I found happiness, it's like to have lost joy and then to have joy back is like unbelievable.
Mm.
And the other thing that I do want to say about ketamine treatment, because people worry about addiction and like, if I have to do ketamine again, fine. If I never do it again for the rest of my life, fine. I have zero attachment to whether I do or I do not ever do it again. But what I do know is I'm never ever going to have PTSD again because I don't have to. And when you have PTSD, everyone tells you this is just your new normal. Sorry. This is, and you know what? It is. It 100% is until these treatments showed up. And it's freedom, and it's I just cannot speak highly enough because I was given my life back and then some, because now I know how it was, and to live within myself every day, I just am tremendously grateful.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think maybe it's worth it to say this also about ketamine and other treatments like ketamine, where there are those who use substances. I'll use the word inappropriately, maybe in a party setting, in an uncontrolled setting. That's not at all what we're talking about here. And I love that you mentioned you did it in a clinic with medical care around you. It was a protocol that that was laid out for you and that you used as a tool for healing. And that, I think, is such a huge difference, right? That makes all the difference in the world, I think, in the use of substances like ketamine. And also, I think it might be worth bringing up, like, your experience is so amazing and so inspiring and was so sudden, right? So you went through a protocol, 5 treatments in a week and a half.
No, in 2.5 weeks.
Two and a
So
half weeks.
it's a
Okay.
week, and then yeah, so about every 3 days I did a treatment.
And the effects were, I mean, you felt effects after the first one, the very first treatment.
Yeah.
And
So
then, yeah.
what they say, the reason you do, and again, I am paraphrasing the doctor, and
Yeah.
I'm just telling you my experience. I am not a doctor. I'm just a grateful patient. But the way that I say it is, when you do it, it lights up your brain and it opens pathways in your brain, right? It opens up neurotransmitters in your brain, and suddenly you get this road system, right? The first time you do it, you're going to have relief, and it's a paved road. But that paved road is going to it's going to collapse in. So then you have to do it again, and it becomes, so I'm sorry, the first time's a dirt road, second time's a paved road, third time's a highway, fourth time's a freeway. So it's
Yep.
like it
Yep.
creates more neuroplasticity, and that's the reason you do it in succession like that. And in the middle of all of that, I'm a huge meditator. And so like what I found, or what I went into when I did it, was I found that I would meditate on the peace that I got. Because I found peace for the first time, I meditate on peace. Because I found happiness in my life again, I meditate on happiness. Because if those parts of my brain now have like connection, then I am sure as hell going to work the rest of my life to make sure that that road system stays open.
Yes.
So you can go and do these treatments, but it's on you to maintain it. And that's what I really speak to, is like, give yourself a chance and then do everything you have to, because eventually it becomes your new normal way of being. I'm no longer in fight or flight. So those neural pathways are open. They are clear. It's been 2.5 years. I mean, I'm normalized. I live a normal life now. My brain has become normal again. And I'm kind of like, wow.
I think you kind of live a pretty amazing life now, but we'll leave that aside. I get what you're saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. So you took it upon yourself, with the understanding that you had about what neuroplasticity is. These treatments gave that to you and you capitalized on it. You did the work on your own to do that between these treatments and after these treatments. And so, because that neuroplasticity can last for a time period, and then you utilize that, and now here you are. And I freaking love that for you. I love that so much for you. Yeah. Yeah. And there was something else that you said earlier that I want to just touch on, if that's okay,
Okay.
because some of those watching this can probably identify with, you went through this terrible experience with a mass shooting, and afterwards, of course, you're going to be afraid of things like fireworks, things like going to a place where mass shootings are happening, like a store, for example, are going to be, I can see how that would trigger. But there were other things around safety that were triggers for you as well. Driving, a boulder is going to fall on me if I drive past this, this cliff or whatever. And so that kind of fear-based living expanded beyond your experience and into everything.
Yeah.
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 So, okay, my friends of mine would say, do you want to go to San Francisco to a play? And they would look at my face because I would just be, I'd start doing this because immediately, because I live in Reno, 3.5 hours to San Francisco. And I would think all the ways that I could die on the way there. I could think of what could happen at the play. I could think about what would happen in San Francisco. And I would say, let me get back to you. And they could see it in my eyes.
Yeah.
And then I'd spend the next 24 hours saying, well, that probably isn't going to happen. And it's really unlikely this is going to do. And I'd have to like talk myself out of it. And then I would say, this would be a normal thing to do. I'm going to go. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to go. Miserable the whole time I was there. And so, but that's what I lived with.
Yeah.
Everyone else with me wouldn't necessarily know that I was suffering the way I was, but I would be like in a play and I would be watching everybody and everything. And then when I would walk out and there would be homeless people, I would think, oh my God, am I safe? Am I safe? Everywhere I went, I just saw what they were going to do. And it was like, it was a movie that played all the time about driving on the freeway. There were premonitions of doom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
Exactly.
I'm an artist, right? So I see things. I'm really visual.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I saw my imminent death 50 different ways every time I left my house every
Oh,
day. But
goodness.
people around me didn't know that. That's what I had to live with. That was the suffering with me and my PTSD, right? And so to not have that, oh, wow.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Of course your life has changed, right? So yeah, yeah, our brain's trying to keep us safe by telling us horrific stories. I love it. Love it so much. And yeah, with trauma, it's just amplified. So, well, I love that you've come through this. I love that you tried everything. Oh my gosh, you deserve everything under the sun. Amazing woman. Let's talk about next steps. Let's talk about what you're working on now and what you're looking forward to in the future.
Well, I have been for the last year writing a book. And the book, what's kind of the trajectory of my life. First of all, I want to also say that a big part of my healing was my creativity. And I became a welder and a furniture maker and a designer and those pieces help put my brain back together. I think those are as important as every other thing I said. So I do want to throw that out there. But when it comes to what I'm doing now, because I talk so much about trauma, and what I think is really important to say is what I went through was a really catastrophic event, but what I'm left with in my body is exactly other people who go through traumatic events that they'll say to me, well, what I went through is nothing like you. And I keep telling people like, never minimize your trauma.
Right.
What you're left with in your body and what I'm left with in my body is what we need to talk about. And I've become this conversationalist about trauma and what trauma does and how it manifests in our body and how it doesn't go away unless we deal with it. It will show up a million different ways. So what I've done is I've really started like meeting with people and talking with people and giving talks about like how trauma manifests. And what I found is I have this great way of translating it so that when I talk about what happens, people go, that's me. And then if they can see that that's them and they can see who I am, then they are like, first time ever, they have some hope. And so it's like, so I started writing a book about a year ago. I actually wrote my first book several years ago, thinking it was going to be about hope and healing. And it was all about the shooting. The whole thing was about the shooting,
Yeah.
but I had to get that out of me.
Sure.
So I started writing a book about really what I did and about like, my protocol for peace. And I wrote this book not because I think I'm that spectacular, because I am not. But what I've done is I have worked so hard to be whole, and I made it. And I believe that there's a lot of stuff out there where people talk about from a therapeutic standpoint, here's what you need to do. And what I have found is that people resonate with me because I'm like, I am an expert on trauma because I have experienced trauma.
Right.
I'm an expert on addiction because I was an addict. Right. And so I can speak to this, I can speak to people's soul as the person who went through it. And if you can see yourself in what I did, then you have the same chance as I do. And so I've been writing this book about hope and healing. And I'm going to start speaking. And I do speak, but I speak at different things. But I want to start speaking. And again, I just think raising the awareness about the impacts of trauma and how we do not have to live with it. Like people saying this is your new normal. I debunk that. This is what is happening for you right now, and what your new normal is going to be is for as much work as you're willing to put into it. And if I can be where I am today, anybody can, and that's the message I have now.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I maybe it's really important to say your your kind of path to healing. Man, I wish it was easier for you, but also it was your path. It's what you experienced, and you tried freaking everything that came your way, right? Um, Everyone's path is a little bit different there. And so I have heard people talk about their ketamine experience specifically, right? So since we're talking about that a little bit here too, being a little less dramatic than yours.
Mhm.
Healing, yes, a little less dramatic in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
So I just think that it's worth it to say that too, and to honor the different journeys that we all experience, and to be able to say, yeah, I tried this, here's what I experienced here, and give people an idea of, hey, this is what can happen, is so beautiful. And I love that. And yes, you're right. You having been through that definitely resonates, right? So
I was told that I'm a switch in ketamine, right? That I went and a switch flipped,
yeah.
right? And that other people are called stackers, that they actually have to go and they just have to keep kind of going, and it gets better and it gets better and it gets better. And I don't know what you're going to be, but I can speak. People go for depression, they go for OCD. There's a lot of things that ketamine treatment will help with. What I truly can speak to is PTSD.
Yeah.
And I also know other people with PTSD. And I think PTSD, this is my, again, I'm not a doctor, but when I live my life a certain way and the next day I am completely changed and altered because an event happened to me, I would imagine that could be why I'm a switch, because I was like this,
Yeah.
right? And then I became like this. And now I'm back like this. I think when people have depression, it's this slow degrading thing that happens over time. And
Mhm.
I would imagine if that happens, it's going to be a slow build back up to get where you are. And this is just my
Sure.
observation. And so I do think it's really important to say, like, there are a lot of things that are out there that can really help. But everybody has their own path, and everybody's going to have what works for me is not necessarily going to work for somebody. But my message is, but find those pieces of you that are going to make you whole and complete. They don't have to be mine.
Yeah. 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 I love that. I love that. And thank you for saying that. I think that's truly important. And man, my wish is for anyone experiencing that to have that kind of resilient experience that you've had for sure. Yeah.
Me too. I mean, all I can tell people is, if these therapies exist, and it's not just
Mhm.
ketamine, it's psilocybin, it's MDMA, there are a lot of different things that are out there. If these things exist, give yourself a chance.
Give it a chance,
That would
right?
be my only message for people. And it's like, give yourself the chance. If it does nothing but create the clearing for you to actually be able to move a little faster in therapy, right? There's a lot of different ways that it can be done. You know, I had this massive lead up into it that made everything come together really fast for me. And when you were saying I did a lot of things, every single thing I did, I never stopped doing, right? I just kept adding another step to it and another step to it. And so I was just not willing to stay broken. I just couldn't do it.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're here, Heather. I'm gonna open I'm going to open up for questions now. So anyone who has a question or a comment for either myself or for Heather, please put it in the Q&A box, in the question box, okay? While we're waiting for those, I just want to make sure, I want to give you kind of the final word, Heather, to share, final word on the message that you're conveying this evening. Yeah.
The message that I have, and the only thing that I really offer from what I've been through, is that like hope and healing are possible. I mean, that's the only conversation I actually want to have moving forward in life,
Yeah.
you know, is that if I can heal, you can heal. And that there are a million different roads to get there. But you just have to believe by seeing somebody else that if I can get help, you can get help. And, you know, my book is called 58 Pieces of Me. And I'm hoping it's going to be out in the next 2 to 3 months. I'm in my final rounds of editing. A lot goes into writing a book, you know that.
I bet. Yes.
And the 58 pieces are representative of 58 people died that night.
Mm.
And it's not about them, but it's about the fact that they died and who I've become because of my journey, because of these people dying. And so the talk that I'm doing is also called 58 Pieces of Me. And then I'm also gonna I'm getting funding to do an art project because I'm a welder and a designer, as I said, and I'm going to be trying to do a big art installation piece that is also called 58 Pieces of Me. I'm kind of a package deal that I actually want to travel around the country representing mass shootings in our country, and it's super personal to me. And these are the things that are on the horizon for me. So if anybody's interested in when my book is going to drop, I would be happy if give you my email if you want to get on my email list, so that I can let you know when it's going to be coming out. And I'm actually just really excited for the opportunity to share more and hopefully, you know, give people some hope.
I love that. I love that, Heather. I've put your email address in the chat box, webinar chat for anyone. I'll also make sure that that's in the show notes. So anyone wanting to know where Heather's speaking or to see if she'll come to your event and speak there if you're blessed enough to have her, please contact her using that email address. Also, yeah, information about the book, use that as well. Put those in the show notes and any other information that is necessary here to get in touch with you, Heather. So it looks like that's all the questions that we have. I just really appreciate you and thank you so much for being here tonight, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me and giving, especially tonight. I mean, it's 7 years and
I'm
7 years.
honored. Yeah, I'm honored to share this anniversary with you as a brand new human being sitting in front of us.
I have one thing I want to say,
Yeah.
and that is that I want to leave with the human spirit is stronger than you could ever give yourself credit for. And I just want people to really believe that, like, if you can move through anything, and that you are stronger than you ever imagined. And I only know this because I was stronger than I ever imagined that I could be. So I am not unique. So give yourself a chance. And that's it. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you, Heather. And I look forward to the book and the art installation, and I'll be there wherever you speak.
Thank you.
All right, Heather.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.